We are live, I believe. We are live. So, like I mentioned just prior, or if you weren't there for it, I'll mention it again. We are going to start a block of 2 hours with meeting some of the people I currently with. So, if you don't know, I'm Albert, better known as Albert Anicus on the internet. I study bird evolution, and I'm part of this lab group led by Dr. Daniel Field, who is going to be speaking later. And everybody in this group studies bird evolution pretty much, but we all study different aspects of it. And here currently we have with us my lab mate, Juan Benito Moreno. And he started his PhD at the same time that I did. And he's working on Ichthyornis, which is a Cretaceous bird that is very closely related to modern birds. So I believe you have a presentation ready.
Yeah. We'll talk about about my PhD research and then take any questions that you guys may have.
All right.
But yeah, let me share the screen and let me know if it can be seen. All right.
Oh, I can see it at least.
Okay, a moment. Cool. Well, if everyone can hear, everyone can see it, I might get started. So yeah, as Albert said, I'm Juan Benito, PhD student at the University of Bath, currently based at the University of Cambridge. Same lab as Albert. We've been sharing an office for the last 3 years, I think. And I'm gonna be talking about the kind of questions that I'm trying to answer with my PhD research. Sadly, a lot of it is work in progress, a lot of it still not published, so I won't be able to show many results, but I hope it works as a good look of the kind of research that we are doing in our lab. And well, I'm gonna talking about the origin of modern birds. So when we talk about modern birds, we are talking about the Crown group of birds. So there is all living birds, their last common ancestor, and all of its descendants. So that includes all living birds that you can see today all over the world, but also some extinct forms from the Cenozoic, like pelagornithids or dromornithids, that are descended from the last common ancestor of all modern birds. So modern or crown birds appeared evolved in the late Cretaceous, and the three major lineages at least diverged from each other before the KPG extinction. These three major lineages are the paleognaths, like ostriches, emus, casuaries, tinamous, the galloancerans, duck and chicken-like birds, and the neoaves, which includes the rest of the tree, since they are significantly more diverse. So we know these three groups diverge from each other before the KPG thanks to techniques such as molecular clocks. But we also know that a very large radiation of modern bird diversity happened after the KPG extinction, probably due to the sudden availability of a lot of ecological niches. So once we know what crown birds are, we don't really have a good idea of how do they relate to Mesozoic bird diversity. We know that we have a relatively good idea of how we go from theropod carnivorous dinosaurs like dromaeosaurs and the like to more bird-like animals like Archaeopteryx or Confuciusornis, but we lack a good idea of how we go from the large diversity of Mesozoic birds into modern life forms. So here you have if it loads, a sample of Mesozoic bird diversity. You can see they are very diverse both in ecology and morphology. We have forms adapted to diving and marine environments. We have arboreal birds with perching feet. We have carnivorous birds, soaring birds, herbivorous, granivores, a lot of different ecologies. And it's this large number of different ecologies, this large disparity in morphology that makes it difficult to really reconstruct the morphological evolution leading to the origin of crown birds. So here you should have, if it loads, a very simplified kind of consensus tree of what is our current view of the relations between Mesozoic birds. Here we call Avialans, which refers essentially to all those bird-like dinosaurs that are more closely related to modern birds than to dromaeosaurs, or in other definitions, all the descendants of the last common ancestor of Archaeopteryx and modern birds, here as Neornithes. So among this large diversity of Mesozoic birds, particularly important group are the Ornithothoraces, which are characterized by modern-like pectoral anatomy that would have granted them powerful flight capabilities. Amongst them, the largest radiation is represented by the Enantiornithes, which are found globally. They show a great range of different ecologies, but they got extinct at the end of the Cretaceous in the KPG extinction. The Euornithes, which represents, or other authors call them Ornithuromorpha, but they represent the branch leading to the origin of modern birds. They show a progressive acquisition of modern-like bird-like features, but we still don't have a good idea of what are the phylogenetic relationships between these kind of birds, particularly close to the origin of modern birds. So, in fact, we do have crown birds or modern birds from the Cretaceous. Some of these specimens are found, they are fairly fragmentary, not that well preserved, and there's a lot of controversy about their phylogenetic position. Here you can see two of them, Big Avis and Polarornis. They were originally described as members of the duck family and the loon group, but some authors have cast doubt on these interpretations, and in some cases even to the point of doubting if they even belong to the crown group. These come from the latest Cretaceous of Antarctica, and together with earliest Paleogene bird remains from Antarctica have led some authors to propose the idea that modern birds or crown birds would have originated in the southern hemisphere. If you may have seen this in the news, but earlier this year our lab group described a new fossil specimen which represents the oldest known crown bird, Asterioris maastrichtensis, which from the latest maastrichtian of Belgium, just before the impact of the asteroid. This, coming from the northern hemisphere, cast doubt on the southern hemisphere origin hypothesis, since it shows that at least by the latest Cretaceous, crown birds were already showing a global distribution. So this fossil, we came across it while I was looking for some other specimens for my PhD research. And it's at first fairly unassuming. There are some blocks with some long bones sticking out of them, but it wasn't until me and my supervisor, we went and CT scanned them in Cambridge, that we essentially realized that it had a complete, or almost complete, it's not playing. It won't play. Well, this is supposed to show an animation of the skull being found inside the block. Well, if you look on the internet, I'm sure you can find it. But essentially, it was an almost Jurassic Park moment. Like, it was there, my supervisor took his glasses off and it's like, wow, and in complete utter disbelief at what we were seeing. But, well, in any case, it includes some skull material, some postcranial material. We reconstructed a kind of shorebird-like ecology for Asterioris. It came from marine sediments, but it didn't show any kind of marine adaptations. So probably living in the coast, like picking in the shore or something like that. So it's important. Let's see if this plays. It doesn't play either. Well, this turns around. It was gonna be very cool. I'm sorry, guys. In any case, yeah, it happens. But yeah, spinny things are always cool. But in any case, Asterioris shows a combination of chicken-like and duck-like features. As you can see here, the premaxilla in red and the nasals in yellow have a very chicken-like morphology, and in contrast, the posterior part of the orbit, which is in the other side, so you cannot see it, in pink, and the lower jaw, particularly this area, in the back of the lower jaw, have some similarities with the condition in duck-like animals. That, together with introducing it in in phylogenetic analysis, we recover Asterioris as very close to the last common ancestor of chickens and ducks, which together form a group called the Galoancerae. That would mean that Asterioris represents probably a stem member of this group, showing or evidencing what we know from molecular clock techniques, which is that major bird lineages had already diverged by the late Cretaceous, since we had found a member of a specific lineage, the Galancerans, in the late Maastrichtian of Belgium. So, to sum up what we've seen so far, we know that Crownbirds originated in the late Cretaceous. We know that major bird lineages diverged from each other before the KPG extinction, and we have proof of at least one of those lineages in this form of Asterioris in the latest Maastrichtian. Despite having all this information and a good preservation of Asterioris, it belongs to a specific lineage. It tells a lot about Galanceran, but we still don't have a good idea of what was the ancestral condition for all modern birds. What did the ancestors of all modern birds look like? And if we want to reconstruct this condition, we should look outside of modern bird diversity into their closest relatives outside of the crown group. This includes groups like the Hesperornithiforms and the Ichthyornis and similar forms. The Hesperornithiforms are a very diverse group with global distribution and a very specialized diving ecology. Their morphology is very specialized to doing one thing, which is swimming and diving, and therefore they are not really a good model organism if we want to reconstruct the ancestral condition, since they are very derived from the expected condition in that part of the tree. Ichthyornis and similar forms like Ichthyornis, in turn, show a much more generalized morphology, and they have been considered in the literature to be more representative of the ancestral bird condition. So I've been working with Ichthyornis for most of my PhD. Ichthyornis is a key taxon to understand the ancestral condition of crown birds. It was first described in the late 19th century by Othniel Marsh of Bone Wars fame, and it was then one of the first known Mesozoic birds. It was a very important discovery. Even Charles Darwin commented on it as proof for his then new theory of evolution. But since the initial description of Ichthyornis by Othniel Marsh, very limited and fragmentary additional material has been recovered or described in the literature. And our knowledge of this animal is based essentially on the material described by Marsh from the collections of the Yale Peabody Museum. So here you can see a reconstruction by Othniel Marsh of some of the original material in the YPM. And despite looking fairly complete and fairly okay, I can assure you it's not as well preserved. It's fairly fragmentary, a lot of the bones are flattened, and he was kind of a hopeful illustrator, let's say. But there's a lot to be known about Ichthyornis. And since the initial description, several species of Ichthyornis have been named, but only one is currently considered valid, Ichthyornis dispar. They all were synonymized by Julia Clark in 2004. So Ichthyornis lived in North America between 95 and 83.5 million years ago in what was then an interior shallow sea crossing the continent, the Western Interior Seaway. This environment has a lot of famous animals like mosasaurs, ammonites, and the like. And Ichthyornis was in fact a very common component of the fauna of this shallow sea. There's a lot. Its material is fairly abundant, but it's usually isolated, fragmentary, and poorly preserved. And it hasn't really been described beyond the initial material. Similar but less well-studied remains, very similar to Ichthyornis, have been recovered from all over the world, from Mexico, Canada, Europe, Russia, etc. This material shows a lot of affinities with the condition in Ichthyornis, but it's usually too fragmentary to be very informative, or it hasn't been really studied, and we don't really know how it relates with Ichthyornis dispar from North America. So, of course, I've been working with some new material of Ichthyornis. I've been working with multiple new undescribed specimens from the late Cretaceous North America, same Niobrara formation, same rocks that the original material came from. Here you can see one of those specimens. We've CT scanned the material to access its 3D morphology, and in fact, the fact that it's preserved in 3D is one of the most important features of Ichthyornis. A lot of fossil bird material, not only from the Mesozoic but also Cenozoic material, is flattened. It might be very well preserved with feathers and color, but the skeletal morphology tends to be distorted by the flattening, especially given that birds have hollow bones. Therefore, when you put pressure on them, they turn into a pancake. The fact that Ichthyornis is preserved in 3D, it's very important if we want to reconstruct that morphological evolution. The new specimens include better preserved examples of several elements, new 3D features that weren't previously preserved, or for example, an almost complete vertebral series. Some part of this material, I've been working mostly with the postcranial material, but the skull material has been already published. Here you can see a composite of some of the skull material from these specimens published by my supervisor and his team in 2018. And they found, for example, that the anatomy of the brain case was much more archaic than previously thought, which together with, well, I guess I can tell you that the postcranial is very, very modern bird-like, shows a mosaic acquisition of modern bird-like features. Sadly, I cannot show much more about this since it's not published and it's still on the works, but stay tuned for new information about Ichthyornis. So why is it important to understand what was the morphology of Ichthyornis, to have a good idea of its anatomy? Well, if we want to reconstruct the morphological transition leading to the origin of crown birds, we need to have a good idea of how these groups relate to each other. What is the topology of the tree around this region? And the problem is that we don't have this good idea. There's at least two different major hypotheses of how these groups relate to each other. They are based on two distinct morphological datasets with different taxonomic coverage, different morphological characters, and they recover different topologies, with either Ichthyornis and Asterioris closer to modern birds, or the Hesperonytiformes closer to the modern group. So I hope that my research with the new Ichthyornis material helps us getting a better resolution of its position in the Crownward tree, bird tree of life, and see how that informs what were the morphological changes from Ichthyornis-like and Hesperonytiforms-like forms into the origin of crown birds. Part of this effort also includes the work on some more poorly known material or undescribed material. This includes a large Ichthyornis-like bird from the late Cretaceous Belgium, which was previously published in 2002, but it wasn't really thoroughly described, and it comes from the same locality as Asterioris, or a North American taxa like Ichthyornis, which has been poorly described in the literature. So, well, just to finish, in case you've been wondering where all those illustrations come from, been working in an upcoming book with illustrator Roc Olivet. It will be published together with Lynx Editions, which are the publishers of the acclaimed Handbook of the Birds of the World, and it will be a field guide style look at Mesozoic bird diversity. There's been books like this in the past. A very important inspiration for us has been the Mesozoic Birds field guide by Matthew Martiniuk, but every year there's a lot of new science about birds, and we aim to provide the most up-to-date look at Mesozoic bird diversity and evolution by the moment of publication. Still in the works, but please stay tuned. So, well, thanks for listening. I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have. If you want to contact me on Twitter, here you have my account with a Ichthyornis theme Twitter icon drawn by Albert here. And, well, I want to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk and to help in this important project and to be part of such a good thing to do. So, well, thank you everyone for listening.
Excellent.
So, yeah, let me stop sharing if I manage to find it. Yeah, so that should be it.
You're still sharing.
Am I still sharing? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Stop sharing. There. Now?
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm hearing a bit of an echo of me on your end.
Well. So let me put the volume a bit down. Cool.
Yeah, so that was an excellent talk. Thank you very much. So if anyone out there in the audience has questions about Ichthyornis to ask Juan, please send in your questions. This is a half-hour event, so I will need to fetch the next presenter in about 5 minutes. So if you do have any...
Okay.
So if you do have any pressing questions about Ichthyornis or other things Juan might have covered in his talk, please do send them in. But other than that, I do know that you have done work on other types of groups of organisms before you started working on birds. What what else have you studied?
Yeah, before getting into birds, I used to work mostly with herpetofaunal material. I was very interested in unassuming little animals that no one care about. Particularly, I work with rhynchocephalians and procolophonids from the latest Triassic from the UK. I also work with Miocene herpetofauna from Spain. In both cases, trying to both understand the early evolution of those groups or trying to understand the biogeography of Mesozoic Miocene herpetofaunas from Europe. So mostly dealing with very, very small microvertebrate material. So, I kind of miss sometimes the little lizards and, well, lizard-like animals and the like. But at the same time, the hours in the microscope, they are hard. So I have to work with 3D models now and do the kind of cool stuff that we are doing with bird evolution.
Right. Yeah. The CT scans have really been a boon for kind of this anatomical research that kind
Oh,
of gets you.
and just imagining how will I do my PhD with the pandemic, just having access to the CT scans
Right.
remotely from home, being able to work on them. That's, yeah, I can't imagine working without CT scans right now.
Right. Yeah, they've been extremely important in our research. So not only being able to see the specimens without having to prepare them out from the rock like we did with Asterioris, um, but also being able to look at very small things without needing to look at the physical specimen. In which case, like you said, you would require a microscope. Like obviously, like some of my own work, I've worked on hummingbirds, which of course are very, very small.
Yeah.
If you want to look at the actual bones from those guys, you would need a microscope to look at them. But with a CT scan, you could just blow it up and just see all the very cool.
Yeah, and do anything you can compare between different groups without need to be in the museum if you have the samples. It's great. I mean, the kind of things that we can do right now with our material, they are amazing. So
yeah. Let's see, and yeah, and I think you're also continuing to do that with the Ichthyornis, aren't you? With the CT material, because that stuff. Oh, someone sent in a question.
oh,
They said, what crown bird do you think Ichthyornis was closest to in terms of its ecology, and also your beard is cool.
well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean it's a bit of trimming. 3 months in pandemic has been hard for it, but thank you. But yeah, about its ecology. I mean, actually, Marsh, when he described it, compared it with Tern, in his case, Sterna maxima. And after just comparing with 3D material from Terns and the like, I think Tern is probably the most similar morphology and ecology among any modern birds. The resemblance is actually uncanny. It's not only the size, I mean, the morphology of the wing bones, the proportions, even the morphology of the sternum or the vertebrae.
Yeah.
It's very similar. I mean, given the difference between a Crownward stem bird, that's something deeply nested within Neoaves, but
Yeah.
They are very, very similar, which I find very cool.
Yeah, that is a very, very
It
interesting.
being the first thing that was proposed by Martian, is like actually that stays true.
He was right about that, I guess. Yeah, as far as we know. Also, someone asked, have you looked at pelagornithids at all?
No, we actually haven't. Me and Albert was supposed to look at some material. That might happen at some point in the future, but pelagornithids, we actually introduced them in the Asterioris, in the Wonder Chicken matrix, and there's a bit of discussion where they fit in the tree, and despite being marine adapted birds that could be interesting analogs of Ichthyornis for the fact that they have teeth, for example, and how that will work.
Tooth-like
structure. Sorry. Serrated beaks. We don't really have at the time much available material here, but at the same time, given the general size of most pelagornithids, and I don't know to what point they will be comparable, but it's definitely something that will be interesting to look at, especially if we do any kind in the future of functional analysis. It's something I will be really interested to look at, both in the flight mode, in the jaw morphology, and how those work. So not yet, but it's a cool thing to do.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see. So Yeah, we have about 5 minutes until 4:30, so I think I should end it about there. Thank you for joining us, Juan.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's been great.
No problem. All right, so when we come back, we'll come back with another one of my lab mates who will be busy still. And other than that, I will stop the stream for now.